He was an Indian statesman who served as the 13th President of India from 2012 until 2017. In a political career spanning 5 decades, he was a senior leader in the Indian National Congress and occupied several ministerial portfolios in the Government of India. Prior to his election as president, he was also the Union Finance Minister from 2009 to 2012. He was awarded India's highest civilian honor, the Bharat Ratna, in 2019 by the President of India. Hello and welcome to UPSC Polity View. Today, let's learn about Pranab Mukherjee. Pranab Mukherjee was born on 11 December 1935 and he died on 31st August 2020.
She was highly politically sensitive and conscious, and naturally because her husband, my father, was in politics from 1920, long period. And like any other housewife in those days, whose husbands were freedom fighters or political activists, their lives were divided between jail and outside jail. When outside jail, they did not remain in the home. They used to do the other political activity.
Mukherjee got his break in politics in 1969 when the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi helped him get elected to the Rajya Sabha, the upper house of Parliament of India, on a Congress ticket. Following a meteoric rise, Pranab Mukherjee became one of Indira Gandhi's most trusted lieutenants and a minister in her cabinet in 1973.
My years in Parliament were further enriched by the wisdom of P.V. Narasimha Rao, oration of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, cryptic one-liners of Muthulimai and Dr. Nath Kovind, wit and humor of Piru Modi, poetic discourses of Professor Hiren Mukherjee, a razor-sharp repartee of Indrajit Gupta, coming presence of Dr. Manmohan Singh, mature advice of L.K. Advani, and passionate support of Sonia Gandhi for social legislations.
Mukherjee's service in a number of ministerial capacities culminated in his first stint as Finance Minister of India in 1982 to 1984. He was also the leader of the House in the Rajya Sabha from 1980 to 1985. Pranab Mukherjee was sidelined from Congress during the premiership of Rajiv Gandhi. Mukherjee had viewed himself and not the inexperienced Rajiv as the rightful successor to Indira following her assassination in 1984. Mukherjee lost out in the ensuing power struggle. He formed his own party, the Rashtriya Samajwadi Congress, which merged with Congress in 1989 after reaching a consensus with Rajiv Gandhi. After Rajiv Gandhi's assassination in 1991, Mukherjee's political career was revived when Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao appointed him Planning Commission Head in 1991 and Foreign Minister in 1995. Following this, as elder statesman of Congress, Mukherjee was the principal architect of Sonia Gandhi's ascent to the party's presidency in 1998. When the Congress-led United Progressive Alliance or UPA came to power in 2004, Mukherjee won a Lok Sabha seat for the first time. The Lok Sabha is a popularly elected lower house of parliament. From then until his resignation in 2012, Mukherjee held a number of key cabinet portfolios in Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's government: Defence from 2004 to 6, External Affairs from 2006 to 9, and Finance from 2009 to 12, apart from heading several groups of ministers and being leader of the House in the Lok Sabha. After securing the UPA's nomination for the country's presidency in July 2012, Pranab Mukherjee comfortably defeated P.A. Sangma in the race to the Rashtrapati Bhavan, winning 70% of the Electoral College vote. In 2017, Pranab Mukherjee decided not to run for re-election and to retire from politics after leaving the presidency due to health complications relating to old age. Pranab Mukherjee's term expired on 25th July 2017. He was succeeded as president by Nath Kovind. In June 2018, Pranab Mukherjee became the first former president of India to address a Rashtriya Swayamsevak or RSS event. Let's learn about the early life and education of Pranab Mukherjee. Pranab Mukherjee was born into a Bengali Brahmin family in Mirati, a village in the Bengal Presidency of British India, which is now in Birbhum district of West Bengal. His father, Kamada Kinkar Mukherjee, was active in the Indian independence movement and was a member of the West Bengal Legislative Council between 1952 and 1964 as a representative of the Indian National Congress. He was also a member of the AICC. His mother was Rajlakshmi Mukherjee. He had two siblings, older sister Annapurna Banerjee from 1920 to 2020 and older brother Piyush Mukherjee from 1931 to 2017. Pranab Mukherjee attended Suri Vidyasagar College in Suri, Birbhum, which was then affiliated to the University of Calcutta. Pranab Mukherjee subsequently earned an MA degree in Political Science and History and an LLB degree both from the University of Calcutta. He was an upper division clerk in the office of the Deputy Accountant General in Calcutta. In 1963, Pranab Mukherjee became a lecturer of political science at Vidyanagar College in Kolkata, affiliated to the University of Calcutta, and he also worked as a journalist at Desher Dak before entering politics. Mukherjee first ran for public office in 1969 when he won a seat in the Rajya Sabha of the Indian Parliament as a member of the Bangla Congress, which soon merged with the Congress Party. He served an additional 4 terms, although he left that chamber in 2004 and contested and won a seat in the Lok Sabha. Pranab Mukherjee served there until mid-2012 when he ran for President of India. Let's learn about the political career of Pranab Mukherjee. Mukherjee started his political career in 1967 as a founding member of the Bangla Congress.
Sometimes I was a small actor. Sometimes I was a spectator. But always I was a participant in Parliament, either sitting on the treasury benches or sitting in the opposition.
Ahead of the 1967 election, Pranab Mukherjee played a crucial role in forging the United Front alliance against the Indian National Congress. In 1969, he managed the successful Midnapur by-election campaign of an independent candidate, V.K. Krishna Menon. Pranab Mukherjee became a member of the Rajya Sabha in July 1969 on a Bangla Congress ticket. Mukherjee soon became the medium of exchanging confidential notes between Indira Gandhi and Ajay Mukherjee. In 1972, Indira Gandhi recruited Pranab Mukherjee to the Indian National Congress along with merging the Bangla Congress into the party. Pranab Mukherjee was re-elected to the House in 1975, 1981, 1993 and 1999. Pranab Mukherjee became a Gandhi loyalist and was often described as a man for all seasons. Mukherjee's rise was rapid in the early phase of his career and he was appointed Union Deputy Minister of Industrial Development in Indira Gandhi's cabinet in 1973. He was active in the Indian cabinet during the controversial internal emergency of 1975 to 77. Ruling Congress politicians of the day, including Mukherjee, were accused of using extra-constitutional powers to wreck established norms and rules of governance.
I was part of government for 22 years as ministers, starting from the date when I was first appointed by Indira Ji in her Council of Ministers in early 70s.
Following Congress's defeat in the 1977 general elections, the newly formed Janata government appointed Shah Commission indicted Mukherjee. However, the commission was itself indicted in 1979 for stepping outside its jurisdiction. Mukherjee emerged unscathed and rose through a series of cabinet posts to become finance minister from 1982 to 1984. Pranab Mukherjee's term was noted for his work in improving the finances of the government, which enabled Indira Gandhi to score a political point by returning the last installment of India's first IMF loan. As finance minister, Pranab Mukherjee signed the letter appointing Manmohan Singh as governor of the Reserve Bank of India. In 1979, Pranab Mukherjee became deputy leader of the Indian National Congress in the Rajya Sabha, and in 1980 he was appointed leader of the House. Pranab Mukherjee was considered the top-ranking Indian cabinet minister, and he presided over cabinet meetings in the absence of the Prime Minister. Mukherjee was sidelined from Indian National Congress following the assassination of Indira Gandhi. Although he was much more experienced in politics than Indira's son Rajiv Gandhi, it was Rajiv who gained control. Mukherjee lost his position in the cabinet and was sent to manage the regional West Bengal Pradesh Congress committee. He was considered to be Indira's likely successor, and siding with those within his party who aligned themselves against Rajiv Gandhi, Mukherjee was sidelined and eventually expelled from the mainstream. In 1986, Pranab Mukherjee founded another party, the Rashtriya Samajwadi Congress or RSC in West Bengal. The RSC and INC merged 3 years later after a compromise was reached with Rajiv Gandhi.
My career as a parliamentarian was no doubt mentored by Srimati Indira Gandhi. Her steely determination, clarity of thought, and decisive actions made her a towering personality.
The RSC had fared terribly in the 1987 assembly polls in West Bengal. Many analysts over the years have attributed the muting of Pranab Mukherjee's political aspirations as a supreme leader to his inability to emerge as a magnetic mass leader. On later being asked whether he ever desired to become Prime Minister, Mukherjee replied, "7 Racecourse Road was never my destination." Zee News noted, the statement assumes heft in the light of the long-standing speculation that Mukherjee, as one of the doyens of Congress, always nursed an ambition to occupy the top executive post. Pranab Mukherjee's political career revived following the assassination of Rajiv Gandhi in 1991, when P.V. Narasimha Rao chose to appoint him as Deputy Chairman of the Indian Planning Commission and subsequently as a Union Cabinet Minister. Pranab Mukherjee served as External Affairs Minister for the first time from 1995 to 1996 in Rao's cabinet. Pranab Mukherjee was considered to be a Gandhi family loyalist and the principal architect of Sonia Gandhi's entry into politics, a mentoring responsibility he was believed to have continued shouldering. He was made General Secretary of the AICC in 1998-99 after Sonia Gandhi became Congress President. Mukherjee was made President of the West Bengal Congress in 2000 and held the position until his resignation in 2010. He had earlier held the position in 1985. Mukherjee became leader of the House in the Lok Sabha in 2004. He contested and won a Lok Sabha seat from Jangipur in West Bengal, which he would later retain in 2009. It was speculated in 2004 that Mukherjee would be made the Prime Minister of India after Sonia Gandhi declined to become Prime Minister. However, Manmohan Singh was chosen instead. Mukherjee was briefly considered for the post of the largely ceremonial Indian presidency in 2007, but his name was subsequently dropped after his contribution in the Union Cabinet was considered practically indispensable.
It was a genuine decision she came whatever be her considerations in her inner mind, but she made it firm. When she pronounced it, she made it firm. She did not budge from inch. Therefore, her leadership has a specially significant role in the contemporary history of Congress. And so far my relationship is concerned, it is war. Initial years, naturally, I did not know her, she did not know me, we did never work together. But from Panchmari conclave onwards, it was war and it continues till today. The first election, she provided leadership to Congress. Congress did not get more than 112. But subsequently, she recognized that Congress will have to adjust itself with the other political aspirant groups and leaders to have some sort of coalition.
Pranab Mukherjee held many important posts in the Manmohan Singh government. He had the distinction of being the minister of various high-profile ministries, including defense, finance, and external affairs. Apart from being leader of the House in the Lok Sabha and Bengal Pradesh Congress Committee President, Pranab Mukherjee also headed the Congress Parliamentary Party and the Congress Legislative Party, which consists of all the Congress MPs and MLAs in the country. Pranab Mukherjee ended his affiliation with the Indian National Congress and retired from active political life following his election as president in 2012. The Economic Times had noted the decades of activity in critical all-rounder roles makes Pranab Mukherjee's exit both a structural and generation shift. With him, the last of the Congress triumvirate, along with Rao and R. Venkataraman, who formed the core team of Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi regimes, bows out. While Rao became PN, Pranab Mukherjee's political marathon too ends where Venkataraman's did at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Let's learn about the political party role played by Pranab Mukherjee. Pranab Mukherjee was very well respected within the party social circles. Media accounts describe Pranab Mukherjee as having a reputation as a number-crunching politician with a phenomenal memory and an unerring survival instinct. Pranab Mukherjee became a member of the Congress Working Committee on 27 January 1978. He also became a member of the Central Parliamentary Board of the All India Congress Committee that year. Pranab Mukherjee briefly held the position of treasurer of the AICC and the Congress Party in 1978. Pranab Mukherjee was appointed chairman of the campaign committee of the AICC for conducting national elections to Parliament in 1984, 1991, 1996 and 1998. He was chairman of the Central Election Coordination Committee of the AICC from 28th June 1999 to 2012. He was appointed to the Central Election Committee on 12th December 2001. Mukherjee was appointed General Secretary of the AICC in 1998. In 1997, Pranab Mukherjee was voted Outstanding Parliamentarian by the Indian Parliamentary Group. After Sonia Gandhi reluctantly agreed to join politics, Pranab Mukherjee was one of her mentors, guiding her through difficult situations with examples of how her mother-in-law Indira Gandhi would have done things. His talents were on display during the negotiations for the Patents Amendment Bill in early 2005. Congress was committed to passing an IP bill, but their allies in the United Progressive Alliance from the left front had a long tradition of opposing some of the monopoly aspects of intellectual property. Mukherjee, as defense minister, was not formally involved but was roped in for his negotiation skills. He drew on many old allies including the CPIM leader Jyoti Basu and formed new intermediary positions which included product patents. Then he had to convince his own colleagues, including Commerce Minister Kamal Nath, who at one point said, "An imperfect legislation is better than no legislation." Finally, on 23rd March 2005, the bill was approved. India Today wrote that Mukherjee's role in skillfully pushing through the historic 123 agreement and treaty with the nuclear suppliers group may have saved the UPA-2 government from the 2008 motion of no confidence. Pranab Mukherjee played a crucial role in steering the cabinet pre-Lok Sabha elections when Prime Minister Manmohan Singh underwent a heart bypass surgery in 2008-2009 by taking additional charges as chairman of the Cabinet Committee of Political Affairs and Union Minister in the Finance Ministry, despite already being Union Minister of External Affairs. Pranab Mukherjee's political skills and long experience in government have also led him to head a large number of committees of ministers in the government. At the time of his resignation, on being nominated as the UPS presidential candidate, Pranab Mukherjee was heading several groups of ministers and empowered groups of ministers, or EGOMS. Let's take a look at Pranab Mukherjee's role in the context of Union Cabinet Ministers. Let's start with the Minister of Defence. Manmohan Singh appointed Pranab Mukherjee as the Minister of Defence of India when the Congress Party once again came to power in 2004. Mukherjee held the post until 2006. He expanded cooperation with the United States during his tenure. The Times of India reported on the WikiLeaks cables release and noted how the US was full of praise for the uniform leadership of Indian armed forces.
It is because Prime Minister trusted me, he gave me some responsibilities, and in that course of responsibilities I had to do that. Moreover, at that point of time when Dr. Manmohan Singh formed his government, I was the senior most. I had long experiences. Before that, I was minister for 14 years. Before 2004, I was in parliament from 1969. Therefore, as a member of parliament, even in the Congress Working Committee, which is the highest policy-making body, I was senior to all of them.
Mukherjee in June 2005 had inked the 10-year Indo-US Defense Framework Deal. Despite increasing cooperation with the United States, Mukherjee maintained that Russia would remain India's topmost defense partner. He asserted that Russia has been and will remain India's largest defense partner in the years to come, while inaugurating the 5th session of the Indo-Russian Intergovernmental Commission on Military Technical Cooperation, or IRIGC-MTC, in Moscow in 2005. Russia and India held their first joint anti-terror war games in Rajasthan in October 2005, during which Pranab Mukherjee and Russian Defense Minister Sergei Ivanov narrowly escaped injury after a heavy mortar landed several meters from their platform. The Russian ministry subsequently declared its hopes to follow up joint military exercises in India with further joint exercises on Russian territory. Let's look at the Minister of External Affairs role. Pranab Mukherjee was appointed External Affairs Minister of India in 1995. Under his leadership, India was made full dialogue partner of ASEAN as part of the Look East foreign policy initiated by Narasimha Rao. Mukherjee left the position in 1996. His second term began in 2006. He oversaw the successful signing of the US-India Civil Nuclear Agreement with the US government and then with the Nuclear Suppliers Group, allowing India to participate in civilian nuclear trade in spite of not having signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Mukherjee played a crucial role in mobilizing world opinion against Pakistan after the 2008 Mumbai attacks. He left the position a year later to take over the Finance Ministry of India. When asked what legacy he wanted to leave behind as Foreign Minister of India, Mukherjee replied, "As the man who prepared Indian diplomacy to address the challenges of a more globalized, interdependent and uncertain world." Let's look at the Minister of Commerce and Industry. Mukherjee thrice served as Commerce Minister of India. His first stints were in the Indira Gandhi government from 1980 to 82 and again in 1984. His third stint in the 1990s saw him contribute significantly to the negotiations which led to the establishment of the World Trade Organization. Mukherjee's first stint as the Finance Minister of India was during the Indira Gandhi government in 1982. He presented his first annual budget in 1982-83. His first term was noted for the work he did to improve the finances of the government and for successfully returning the last installment of India's first IMF loan. Mukherjee signed the letter appointing Manmohan Singh as the Governor of the Reserve Bank of India in 1982. He was accused of patronage practices in the Ambani-Wadia industrial feuds. Pranab Mukherjee was credited with being an early reformer of the Indian economy. India Today wrote, Operation Forward, which Mukherjee and then Industries Minister Charanjit Chanana launched in the early 1980s, started the liberalization process that flowered under Rao and Manmohan Singh.
Change is the only constant factor, and that change always not positive. It may be negative, it may be positive, it may even be disruptive, but change is constant and change is continuing.
A left-wing magazine once commented that socialism did not grow out of the pipe Mukherjee smoked. Pranab Mukherjee was removed from his position as finance minister by Rajiv Gandhi in 1984. Gandhi had wished to bring in his own team of staff to govern India. Mukherjee was replaced even though he was rated as the best finance minister in the world that year according to a survey by Euromoney magazine. He returned to handling the finances of India during the premiership of Narasimha Rao after being appointed deputy chairman of the Planning Commission. During Mukherjee's tenure of 1991 to 1996, Dr. Manmohan Singh as finance minister oversaw many economic reforms to end the licensed Raj system and help open the Indian economy. Pranab Mukherjee once again became the finance minister of India in 2009. He presented the annual budgets in 2009, 2010 and 2011. The 2010-11 budget included the country's first explicit target to cut public debt as a proportion of the GDP, and Mukherjee targeted a budget deficit reduction of 4.1% of the GDP in the fiscal year 2012-2013 from 6.5% in 2008-2009. Pranab Mukherjee implemented many tax reforms, including scrapping the fringe benefits tax and the commodities transaction tax. He implemented the goods and services tax during his tenure. These reforms were well received by major corporate executives and economists. The introduction of retrospective taxation, however, has been criticized by some economists. Pranab Mukherjee expanded funding for several social sector schemes, including the Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission. He also supported budget increases for improving literacy and healthcare. He expanded infrastructure programs such as the National Highway Development Program. Electricity coverage was also expanded during his tenure. Mukherjee also reaffirmed his commitment to the principle of fiscal prudence as some economists expressed concern about the rising fiscal deficits during his tenure, the highest since 1991. Mukherjee declared the expansion in government spending was only temporary. In 2010, Pranab Mukherjee was awarded Finance Minister of the Year for Asia by Emerging Markets, the daily newspaper of record for the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Mukherjee was praised for the confidence he has inspired in key stakeholders by virtue of his fuel price reforms, fiscal transparency, and inclusive growth strategies. The banker also recognized Pranab Mukherjee as Finance Minister of the Year. Pranab Mukherjee's final years at the finance ministry were not considered a success. The NDTV, upon his resignation in June 2012, wrote, "There had been a clamour from many quarters for a change in the finance ministry, with Mr. Mukherjee having faced flack for several decisions where politics seemed to overwhelm economic imperatives." Pranab Mukherjee was also the chairman of the Indian Statistical Institute in Kolkata. He also held the posts of chairman and president of the Rabindra Bharat University and the Nikhil Bharat Banga Sahitya Sammelan, trustee of the Bangiya Sahitya Parishad and the Bidhan Memorial Trust. He also served on the planning board of the Asiatic Society. Pranab Mukherjee was nominated as the presidential candidate of the United Progressive Alliance on 15th June 2012, after considerable political intrigue. The elections were scheduled to be conducted on 19th July 2012 and the results were expected to be announced on 22nd July 2012. The nominee of the National Democratic Alliance (NDA) was P.A. Sangma. To file his nomination for the presidential poll on 28 June, Pranab Mukherjee resigned from the government on 26 June 2012. In the election, Pranab Mukherjee received 713,763 votes, while Sangma had 315,987 votes. Pranab Mukherjee was sworn in by the Chief Justice of India on 25 July 2012, becoming the first Bengali to hold the post of President of India. After being administered the oath of office, Pranab Mukherjee stated that we are in the midst of a fourth world war of terror. The third was the Cold War, and what minutes of peace can achieve cannot be achieved in many years of war. Congress President Sonia Gandhi and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh both congratulated Mukherjee on his election as president. Former communist leader Somnath Chatterjee termed Mukherjee as one of the best parliamentarians and statesmen of India and said the country has got the most able man for the top job. Opposition leader Sharad Yadav declared the nation needed a president like Pranab Mukherjee. Delhi Chief Minister Sheila Dikshit commented and said Pranab Mukherjee will be one of the wisest presidents. She further marveled at the fact that parties in the opposition ranks supported Mukherjee. Even the NDA broke up and wanted to vote for the president to be Pranab Mukherjee. The Bharatiya Janata Party was reportedly shocked and upset at the cross-voting for Mukherjee by its legislative members. However, BJP party president Nitin Gadkari congratulated Mukherjee and said, "I extend my hearty congratulations to Pranab Mukherjee on his election today as the new president of India." Gadkari further declared, "I am sure that the country will make further development and progress. I wish him all success and a bright future." Let's learn about the personal life of Pranab Mukherjee. Pranab Mukherjee married Suvra Mukherjee on 13th July 1957. Suvra Mukherjee was born at Narail, Bengal Presidency in present-day Bangladesh. She moved to Kolkata while she was 10 and married Pranab Mukherjee in 1957. The couple had 2 sons and a daughter. Suvra died on 18th August 2015, aged 74, of heart failure while Pranab Mukherjee was still in office. Their elder son Abhijit Mukherjee was a Congress MP from Jangipur, West Bengal until 2019. He was elected in a by-election after his father vacated the seat. Before his election to the Lok Sabha, Abhijit was an MLA from Nalhati in Birbhum. Mukherjee was inspired by Deng Xiaoping and quoted him quite frequently. His hobbies were reading, gardening, and music.
I read not only once. What I like, I read umpteen number of times. Even a fiction, if I like, I read many times. A fiction. Whenever I get time, I read something. Because I cannot remain, either I will read a file or I will read papers or I will read book.
Pranab Mukherjee's daughter Sharmishta Mukherjee is a Kathak dancer and a politician of the Indian National Congress. Pranab Mukherjee celebrated the Durga Puja at his ancestral home in Mirathi village. He used to make it a point to be at Mirathi village every year to take part in the 4-day rituals, the puja having social dimension for him. I want to avail this opportunity to be with the people of my area, Mukherjee said during a puja ceremony on 4th October 2011. During the COVID-19 pandemic, on 10th August 2020, Mukherjee announced on Twitter that he had tested positive for COVID-19 prior to a surgery to remove a blood clot in his brain. He was admitted to the hospital after accidentally slipping and falling in his bathroom. He was on ventilator support and in critical condition at the Army's Research and Referral Hospital in Delhi. On 13th August, the hospital reported that Mukherjee was in a deep coma after he underwent brain surgery. However, his vital parameters remained stable. On 19th August, the R&R hospital said that the Mukherjee's health condition had declined as he had developed a lung infection. On 25th August, his renal parameters became slightly deranged, with the condition worsening days later. Pranab Mukherjee died on 31st August 2020, aged 84, which was confirmed by his son Abhijit Mukherjee via Twitter. His death came after the attending hospital confirmed that his health had deteriorated early that day, stating that he had been in septic shock since a day earlier, which was caused by his lung infection. Condolences poured in immediately from leaders of both India and other nations. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the President Nath Kovind, Vice President Venkaiah Naidu, Home Minister Amit Shah, and Congress leader Rahul Gandhi conveyed their condolences via Twitter. The President of Russia Vladimir Putin, the President of Afghanistan Ashraf Ghani, the President of Maldives Ibrahim Mohammad Soli, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister of Bhutan Lotte Tshering, the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka Mahinda Rajapaksa, and the Prime Minister of Nepal KP Sharma Oli were among foreign leaders who paid their respects. Sports players and actors from the country also voiced their sorrow.
I have already stated many a times that I am quite satisfied with what I received, and I always believe, and this is not for the first time I am saying so, I received much more from the people of this country than I have given to them. I am ever indebted to them.
The Government of India announced a 7-day period of state mourning between 31st August to 6 September, whereby the national flag would fly at half-mast on all buildings wherever it is flown regularly. The West Bengal state government declared a closure of state-run offices for the following day as a mark of respect. The funeral was held the following day on 1st September at the Lodhi Road crematorium with full state honours. The body was brought to the crematorium in a van instead of gun carriage due to COVID-19 pandemic restrictions in the country. His ashes were immersed into the Ganges River in Haridwar. Let's listen to what Pranab Mukherjee said in his farewell speech.
Honorable Vice President, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Prime Minister, distinguished members of the Council of Ministers, leaders of various political parties, I would like to gratefully acknowledge and appreciate for organizing this warm farewell to me. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Thank you, Honorable Members of both the Houses. Honorable Members, If I claim I am the creation of this parliament, perhaps it will not be treated as immodesty. This parliament created as an individual my political outlook and persona, which has been shaped by this temple of democracy. Bear with me if I feel nostalgic and indulge myself by going back to the past. On 26 January 1950, the Constitution of India came into effect. In a remarkable display of idealism and courage, we, the people of India, gave to ourselves a sovereign democratic republic to secure to all its citizens justice, liberty, and equality. We undertook to promote amongst all citizens fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and ensuring the unity of the nation. These ideals became the lodestar of modern Indian state. The Indian Constitution, consisting of 395 articles and 12 schedules, is not merely a legal document for the administration, but the Magna Carta of a socio-economic transformation of a vast multitude of people living in India. It represents the hopes and aspirations of 1 billion plus people. 68 years ago, after the first general election, the Indian Parliament began its journey representing the sovereign will of its people. Both the houses were constituted. The first President of the Republic was elected, who addressed the first joint session of the Parliament, and the Indian parliamentary system rolled out. Honorable members, when I first entered the portals of this hallowed institution 48 years ago, I was 34 years old. In July 1969, I came to the Parliament as a member of Rajya Sabha, representing one of the 6 seats from the state of West Bengal. My election to Rajya Sabha took place on 4th July, and the first session I attended was 22nd July 1969. Honorable members, since then, for the last 37 years, I served as a member of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Of these, I served 5 terms as member of the Rajya Sabha, 4 times being elected from West Bengal and 1 time from Gujarat. And 2 terms in Lok Sabha. My long career has been instructive and educative. I entered Parliament at a time when the Rajya Sabha was full of experienced parliamentarians, leaders of the freedom movement, many of whom were brilliant speakers. M.C. Chagla, Ajit Prasad Jain, Jairam Das Daulatram, Bhupesh Gupta, Joaquim Alva, Mohavir Tyagi, Rajnaran, Dr. Bhai Mohabir, Loknath Mishra, Chitta Basu, and many others. In fact, Bhupesh Gupta was truly a legend in the Rajya Sabha. From 1952 till his death, 1981, he was the member of Rajya Sabha. Dayabhai Patel and Monibal Patel, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel's son and daughter, represented Swatantra Party in the Parliament. My years in Parliament were further enriched by the wisdom of P.V. Narasimha Rao, oration of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, cryptic one-liners of Muthulimai and Dr. Nathpai, wit and humor of Piru Modi, poetic discourses of Professor Hiren Mukherjee, a razor-sharp repartee of Indrajit Gupta, coming presence of Dr. Manmohan Singh, mature advice of L.K. Advani, and passionate support of Sonia Gandhi for social legislations. Fellow members, my career as a parliamentarian was no doubt mentored by Srimati Indira Gandhi. Her steely determination, clarity of thought, and decisive actions made her a towering personality. She never hesitated to call a spade a spade. I remember after the defeat of Congress and herself in the post-emergency election, we had gone to London in November 1978. A large number of media persons in a fairly aggressive mood were waiting to ask Srimati Gandhi questions. The first question that was flung at her was, I quote, "What have been your gains from the emergency?" Unquote. Looking at the journalist squarely in the eye, in a level voice, Indira Gandhi replied, "In those 21 months, we comprehensively managed to alienate all sections of Indian people." There was a broad silence for a moment, followed by a huge laughter, and thereafter there was no question in the waiting room of Heathrow Airport, and the media persons just melted away. And I also learned an early lesson of acknowledging my mistakes and rectifying them. Self-correction in such situation is always a better option than self-justification. Honorable members, in those days, both houses of the Parliament used to reverberate with animated discussions and illuminative and exhaustive debates on social and financial legislations. Listening to the stalwarts for hours and days in Parliament, sitting in the Treasury or opposition benches, I felt one with the soul of this living institution. Understood the real value of debate, discussion, and dissent. I realized how disruption hurts the opposition more than the government, as it denies them the opportunity to raise the concerns of the people. I internalized the sense of what Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru had said, and I quote, "There has always to be a balancing of change and continuity. The system of parliamentary democracy embodies these principles of change and continuity, and it is up to those who functions in this system members of the House, and the numerous others who are part of this system to increase the pace of change, to make it as fast as they like, subject to the principle of continuity. If continuity is broken, we become rootless and the system of parliamentary democracy breaks down. Unquote. Honorable members, I experienced the joy of the enactment of pro-poor and pro-farmer legislations. The recent passage of goods and service tax and its launch on 1st July is a shining example of cooperative federalism and speaks volumes for the maturity of Indian Parliament. To be a part of this system is a unique experience, and I am grateful to the people of this great country for giving me this opportunity. I had the privilege of being a witness and a participant in the unfolding scenario of emergence of a great India, an India where 130 crore people belonging to three major ethnic groups, Aryans, Dravidians, Mongolites, practicing 7 major religions and 122 languages in the daily lives, live yet under one constitution, one flag, and one administrative system. Honorable members, not a single part of this vast territory of 3.3 million square kilometers of landmass and islands is unrepresented in the Parliament. 543 persons from 543 territorial constituencies of this country representing the people in Lok Sabha and 245 persons elected by 29 states and union territories, including 12 nominated members by President, make laws, scrutinize orders of the executive, and enforce accountability to protect the interests of the people. Each of these 790 voices is important. It is unfortunate that parliamentary time devoted to legislations has been declining. With the heightened complexity of administration, legislation must be preceded by scrutiny and adequate discussion. Scrutiny in committee is no substitute to open discussion on the floor of the House. When the Parliament fails to discharge its lawmaking role or enacts laws without a discussion, I feel it breaches the trust reposed in it by the people of this great country. Through the instrument of ordinance, the executive has been vested with extraordinary powers to make laws to meet exigencies during a time when Parliament is not in session. However, such ordinances have to be approved by Parliament within 6 weeks from the next session of the Parliament. I am firm in the opinion that the ordinance route should be used only in compelling circumstances, and there should be no recourse to ordinance on monetary matters. Ordinance routes should not be taken on matters which are being considered or have been introduced in the House or a committee of the House. If a matter is deemed urgent, the concerned committee should be made aware of the situation and should be mandated to present its report within the stipulated time. Honorable members, it was in July 2012 again, my membership in Lok Sabha came to an end when I was declared elected as the 13th President of the Republic on 22nd of that month. Even though 37 years of my life in Parliament came to an end on that day, but still I continued to have a tenacious link with the institution. In fact, I became an integral part of it as President of the Republic as per Constitution. Article 79 of the Constitution says, there shall be a President for the Union which shall consist of the President and the two houses to be known respectively as the Council of States and the House of People. In these 5 years, my principal responsibility was to function as the guardian of the Constitution. As I had said on oath, I strived to preserve, protect, and defend our Constitution, not just in word, but also in spirit. In this task, I greatly benefited from the advice and cooperation extended by Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi at every step. With passion and energy, he is driving transformational changes in the country. I will carry with me fond memories of our association and his warm and courteous behavior to me. As I retire from the office of the President of the Republic, my association with the Parliament also comes to an end. I will no longer be a part of the Parliament of India. It will be with a tinge of sadness and a rainbow of memories that I will be leaving this magnificent building today. Honorable members, with a sense of gratitude and a prayer in my heart, I take leave of you. I leave with a sense of fulfillment and happiness of having served the people of this great country through this institution as their humble servant. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Jai Hind.
Let's listen to what Prime Minister Narendra Modi said about his experience with Pranab Mukherjee.
एक भी मेरी मुलाकात पिछले 3 साल में राष्ट्रपति जी के साथ ऐसी नहीं रही जिसमें उन्होंने पिता की तरह, और मैं बहुत अंतर्मन से कह रहा हूं, कोई पिता अपने संतान की जैसे देखभाल करे। देखो मोदी जी, आधा दिन तो आराम करना ही पड़ेगा। मुझे दा कहते, प्रणव दा कहते।
What is India? Let's learn from Pranab Mukherjee.
I want to share with you some truths that I have internalized during my 50 years and more public life. As party activist, as member of parliament, as member of cabinet. The soul of India resides in pluralism and tolerance. This plurality of our society has come through assimilation of ideas over centuries. Secularism and inclusions are a matter of faith for us. It is our composite culture which makes us into a nation. India's nationhood is not one language, one religion, one entity, When I shut my eyes and dream of India, from Mizoram to Dwarka, from snow-capped Himalayan to way west was Cape Comorin, I mesmerize how it is possible 1.3 billion people use more than 122 languages and 1600 dialects in their everyday life, practice 7 major religions in their everyday life, belong to 3 major ethnic groups, Caucasians, Dravidians, and Mongolites. Yet, under one system, one flag, one constitution, and one identity, which we may call Bharatiya, Indian. But we do not identify any enemy. That is, makes Bharat diverse and united nation. In a democracy, I believe informed and reasoned public engagement on all issues of national importance is essential. A dialogue is necessary not only to balance the competing interests, but also to reconcile them. Divergent strands in public discourse have to be recognized. We may argue, we may agree, we may not agree, but we cannot deny the essential prevalence of multiplicity of opinion. Only through a dialogue can we develop the understanding to solve the complex problems without an unhealthy strife within our polity.
Thank you for listening to this discussion on Pranab Mukherjee. For more such discussions, get the UPSC Practice app from the App Store and visit upscpractice.com.